The island of Sodor is home to the Northwestern Railway, with engines of all shapes and sizes, working hard to deliver goods and passengers to their destinations. There are lines that run along the coast of the island serving the docks, the fishing villages, and the seaside towns. There are branch lines that run to the farms, and the quarries, and the ancient castles of the island's heartland. And then there is the main line, which runs all the way from Knapford on the west coast of the island to Vickerstown in the east, and continues over the Vickerstown Bridge, where it connects to the mainland and beyond.
Winter had come to the island of Sodor, blanketing the land in a serene layer of snow. The engines of Sodor busily worked to keep the tracks clear and the trains running on time, ensuring that life on the island continued smoothly despite the cold. Among the many tasks they had, one of the most important jobs during the winter season was delivering the mail. This was a special responsibility that Percy and Thomas took great pride in. Early one morning at Knapford Station, steam rose in their funnels in the crisp air. "Good morning, Percy. Ready for another day of mail deliveries?" Thomas asked cheerfully. "Absolutely, Thomas. I love delivering the mail, especially during winter. Everyone gets so happy receiving their letters and parcels for the holidays. It feels like we're spreading a bit of joy all over Sodor," Percy excitedly replied. Thomas and Percy were coupled to their mail vans, each filled with letters, cards, and festive parcels. As the morning sun began to rise, casting a golden glow over the snow-covered landscape, they prepared to set off on their important mission. The two engines puffed out of Knapford Station, their wheels crunching through the fresh snow. The snow had turned the countryside into a winter wonderland, with the snowflakes gently falling from the sky and settling on the ground. The two engines chugged along, their funnels humming cheerfully as they chuffed from station to station, delivering the mail and spreading holiday cheer. Various stations, station masters eagerly unloaded and loaded mail. "Oh, this is it. Yeah, this is the mail. Ah, yes, put foods on the table. Here's the mail for Elsbridge. We've got letters and parcels for the whole village," Thomas said to his station master. "Thank you, Thomas. And here's the mail for the next station. Happy holidays to you both," the station master replied, smiling. "Happy holidays," Percy waved. As the day wore on, the snowfall grew heavier, turning the gentle flurry into a thick, swirling storm, making it harder for Thomas and Percy to see where they're going. "Thomas, this snow is really coming down. Woo! Do you think we'll be able to finish the deliveries?" "We have to, Percy. People are counting on us to get their holiday mail. We just need to be careful," Thomas said determinedly. After a long day of deliveries, Thomas and Percy arrived at Tidmouth Sheds for a brief rest. The snow was now falling heavily, blanketing everything in sight. Edward looked out from the shed. "Look at that snow. It's coming down really fast. I'm surprised you two made it here." "Oh, it's been quite a day, Edward. The snow has made the tracks very slippery," Thomas said, shivering slightly. "But you two did a wonderful job. You've been working hard to keep the mail on schedule," Edward said encouragingly. "Thanks, Edward. It's been tough, but it's been also a lot of fun. I love seeing all the happy faces when we deliver the mail," Percy said gratefully. After a quick warm-up and a chat with the other engines, Thomas and Percy prepared to head back out into the snowstorm. They knew that the last leg of their journey was just as important as the first. The snowstorm continued to rage, making it difficult to see the tracks and the signals. But Thomas and Percy pressed on, determined to complete their mission. As they approached the valley cutting, they saw a large snowdrift completely blocking their path. "Oh no, Thomas! Look at that snowdrift! We can't get through like this! Percy said, alarmed. We have to clear the way. We can't let this snowdrift stop us now. Let me go first and try and push through, Thomas said, thinking quickly. Thomas took the lead, moving slowly and steadily forward to the snowdrift. He pushed with all his might, the snow flying up around him as he worked to clear the tracks. Percy followed close behind, ready to assist. With teamwork and perseverance, Thomas and Percy managed to break through the snowdrift. Their path was once again clear, and they emerged the storm with renewed determination. We did it, Thomas! The tracks are now clear! Percy said, relieved. We make a great team, Percy. Let's keep going. We have to finish our deliveries before the night is through, Thomas said, smiling. With the path cleared, Thomas and Percy continued their journey, delivering the remaining mail to every station along the way. Despite the challenges of the snowstorm, they completed their mission with a sense of pride and accomplishment. By the time they finished their deliveries and made their way back to Tidmouth Sheds, the snow had finally started to ease. The clouds parted, revealing a night sky filled with twinkling stars. When they arrived, the other engines were waiting. Well done, you two. You managed to deliver all the mail despite the snowstorm. That's quite an achievement, Henry said proudly. You both deserve a good rest. You've worked hard and done your best, Edward said, smiling. Thanks, everyone. It was tough, but we knew how important it was to get the mail through, Thomas said, yawning. Delivering the mail during winter is special. Seeing everyone's happy faces makes it all worthwhile, Percy said, smiling. Percy and Thomas settled into their berths, feeling tired but proud of their day's work. As they drifted off to sleep, they knew that they had once again shown the true spirit of the Sodor Railway. It was Christmas Eve on Sodor, and the engines at Tidmouth Sheds were buzzing with festive cheer as they prepared for their special Christmas task. Morning, James. Aren't you excited for today's deliveries? Henry asked cheerfully. Oh, absolutely, Henry. I've got a full train of Christmas trees and decorations. The children are going to be so happy, James replied proudly. The Fat Controller had assigned James to deliver Christmas trees and decorations to the towns along the main line, whilst Henry was tasked with delivering coal to the stations and homes across the island. The Fat Controller handed James a list of decorations and Henry a list of stops. Both engines listened closely. James, you must make sure that every town gets their trees and decorations in time for Christmas. And Henry, you need to deliver coal so the people don't freeze tonight. Remember, the snow may make the tracks slippery, so be careful, the Fat Controller said kindly. Oh, don't worry, sir. I'll make sure everything gets delivered on time, James said determinedly. I'll take care of the coal deliveries, sir. We won't let you down, Henry nodded. With their tasks clearly outlined, James and Henry set out into the early morning. The sky was a pale grey, and the snow-covered tracks glistened in the weak winter sun. James puffed away from the sheds with a train full of trees and decorations. Henry followed behind with a train of coal. James was eager to make his deliveries and was determined to be the fastest engine on Sodor. Meanwhile, Henry took a more cautious approach, making sure his precious cargo was delivered safely. James sped along the snowy tracks, his wheels occasionally slipping and skidding. Snow sprayed around him as he moved quickly. Despite James's determination, the snowy conditions made the tracks slippery and treacherous. As he rounded a bend, he saw a patch of ice ahead and tried to slow down, but the icy track was too slippery. His wheels slipped on the ice. His train began to skid uncontrollably. With a loud crash, James hit the buffers and plowed deep into a snowbank. James was left stuck, but buried up to his buffers in snow. Oh, this is awful. I've ruined Christmas for everyone. Meanwhile, Henry was making his way down the same line when he saw James's predicament. At first, he couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of his friend buried in the snow. Oh, James, you look like you're having a snow bath. What a mess you've made. Henry laughed. It's not funny, Henry. I was trying to be fast, and now I've let everyone down. These presents were meant for the children, James said, embarrassed. Henry's laughter soon faded as he saw how upset James was. He knew, despite his friend's mishap, there was still work to be done. Don't worry, James. We can fix this. Let's work together to get you back on the tracks, Henry said sincerely. Henry carefully coupled up to James and pulled him out the snowbank. Thank you, Henry. I don't know what I would have done without your help, James said gratefully. That's what friends are for, James. We all have tough days, but it's how we help each other that really counts. Now, let's get these presents delivered and make sure Christmas is still special for everyone, Henry said, smiling. Together, they set off, determined to complete their task. The two engines worked together to navigate the slippery tracks, carefully making their deliveries. Henry guided James through the snowy paths and ensured they stayed on course. As they arrived at each station, the townsfolk greeted them with cheers and smiles. The joy and excitement in the air made all their hard work worthwhile. Despite their earlier mishap, James was able to deliver all the decorations on time, thanks to Henry's help. The Christmas spirit was alive and well on the island of Sodor, and everyone was filled with joy. When they arrived back at Tidmouth Sheds in the evening, they looked tired, but happy. Well done, Henry and James. You've both shown the true Christmas spirit today. You've made everyone on Sodor very happy, the Fat Controller said proudly. I couldn't have done it without Henry, sir. He's a true friend, James said, smiling. I must say, James, you did a fine job despite the accident. You really came through in the end, Henry grinned. The engines settled down for the night, feeling proud of their hard work and the joy they had brought to the island. The snow continued to fall gently outside, creating a peaceful and serene winter scene. It was New Year's Day on the island of Sodor, and the engines worked hard to keep the railway running smoothly, despite the harsh weather. At Tidmouth Sheds, the ground was covered in snow, and the windows were frosted. Gordon, Henry, and the other engines were seen preparing for their daily duties. Look at me. I'm pulling the express today, and there's nothing quite like it. It's the most important train on the island, Gordon said proudly. That's true, Gordon, but the Flying Kipper is important too. It helps bring the fresh fish to market every day so people can have fish for their meals. Gordon smirked. Ah, the Kipper. Such a smelly, dirty train. I'm glad I don't have to pull it. Only an engine like you could enjoy such a job, Henry. Henry responded patiently. The Kipper may not be glamorous, but it's essential work. I don't mind the cold. It makes me feel fresh and alive, and I know I'm doing something important for the people of Sodor. Gordon just snorted dismissively and puffed away to take his express train. He was eager to leave the cold behind and get on with his more prestigious duties. Gordon pulled the express train through the snowy landscape, his wheels moving smoothly over the tracks. The next morning, the Fat Controller had a surprise for Gordon. He walked to the sheds with a serious look on his face. Gordon, the Vicarstown rolling bridge has frozen, and Henry is stuck on the mainland. He won't be able to pull the flying Kipper tonight. You'll have to take it for him, the Fat Controller said. Me? Pull the Kipper? But, sir, I'm an express engine, not a goods engine. This is beneath me, Gordon said indignantly. Tonight, you're a goods engine, Gordon. The Kipper must be delivered on time. The market needs fish, and it's your responsibility to see it gets there, the Fat Controller said firmly. Gordon grumbled, but there was nothing he could do. The Fat Controller's orders were final, and he found himself coupled to a long line of fish fans. This is ridiculous. I'm too important for this sort of work. Why should I have to pull such a smelly, dirty train? Gordon muttered. As evening fell, Gordon set off with the Kipper. The night was clear but cold, and the tracks were covered in a thin layer of frost. The stars twinkled in the sky, casting a cold but beautiful light over the snow landscape. First, Gordon tried to ignore the smell of fish and the discomfort of the cold. He focused on the task in hand, determined to show everyone how he could handle the Kipper just as well as Henry. I'll show them. I'll get this Kipper to market in record time, Gordon puffed. The journey started smoothly. Gordon made good time along the line and began to feel a bit more confident. However, as he approached Gordon's hill, he started to struggle. Come on, we can do this. Just a little more, Gordon strained. As Gordon reached the top of the hill, he was relieved, but the weight of the heavy train began to push him forward on the icy tracks. Oh no, the weight of the train is too much, Gordon panicked. The train rushed down the hill, gaining speed as it hurtled towards Marin. Gordon desperately tried to apply his brakes, but the icy rails made them almost useless. Gordon's wheels slipped and skid on the icy tracks, but as he was diverted into a siding, he went straight through the buffers. The train crashed and came to a sudden stop in a deep snowbank. Oh no, this is a disaster, Gordon cried out. The next morning, the Fat Controller and Henry arrived to inspect the damage. Henry, who had just arrived from the mainland, was sent to see if he could help. Gordon, I'm very disappointed in you. You should have been more careful with such a heavy train on these icy tracks, the Fat Controller said disappointedly. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't realize how difficult the Kipper could be. I thought it would be an easy task, Gordon said sheepishly. It's all right, Gordon. The Kipper is tricky, especially in winter. I had to learn that lesson myself, but you'll get the hang of it with practice, Henry said sympathetically. With Henry's help, the fish vans were carefully removed from the snowbank, and Gordon was pulled back onto the tracks. He was taken to the works for repairs and to warm up. That evening, as Gordon rested at the works, he looked over at Henry. I'm sorry for teasing you, Henry. I didn't understand how hard the Kipper job really is. I have a new appreciation for the work you do, Gordon said sincerely. No harm done, Gordon. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. Just remember, every job on the railway is important, whether it's the Express or Kipper, Henry said, smiling. Gordon took Henry's words to heart and had learned a valuable lesson about respecting all kinds of work, no matter how unglamorous they might seem. From that day on, Gordon never complained about the Kipper again. He understood that every job on the railway was crucial to keeping the island running smoothly. Winter had come to the island of Sodor, and with it a thick blanket of snow. The engines were keeping busy, keeping the lines clear, and delivering goods and passengers safely. Among them were Donald and Douglas, the Scottish twins, who were no strangers to working in harsh conditions. The snow-covered landscape was a beautiful sight, and also brought many challenges for the railway. Early one morning at Tidmouth Sheds, the engines chatted quietly as the snowflakes drifted down. "Aye, Dougie, another day of snow ahead. Are ye ready for the challenges we face?" Donald said cheerfully. "Aye, Tony, we got to keep the lines clear and deliver supplies where they're needed. The far controller's counting on us for the job to get done," Douglas replied determinedly. The twins had been given the important task of clearing the main line and ensuring that essential supplies reached the stations and towns cut off by the heavy snow. They were equipped with snowplows to tackle the deep drifts and prepare the tracks for the other trains. As the workmen attached the snowplow, Donald grinned. "This snowplow will help us clear the way. We'll have the tracks cleared in no time." Douglas nodded. "Aye, Donny, it's gonna be a long day, but we're ready for it." The twins set off into the snowy landscape, their wheels rumbling with purpose. The snow was deep, and the wind howled through the trees, but Donald and Douglas pressed on, determined to keep the railway running smoothly. However, as they puffed through the snow-covered countryside, their snowplow pushed snow aside, creating a clear path behind them. The snow continued to fall, creating a beautiful frosted world around them. But despite the serene surroundings, their job at hand was demanding. "Look at the snow piling up, Dougie!" "Aye, Dougie, but we need to push through the snowdrift as we go." The twins encountered a series of challenges as they made their way along the line. Deep snowdrifts had formed along the tracks, threatening to halt their progress, but Donald and Douglas were persevering and pushed through these obstacles. However, as they approached a steep hill, a large snowdrift was at the bottom. The snow swirled around. "Dougie, look at the size of that snowdrift. It's bigger than we thought," Donald shouted over the roar of the wind. However, Douglas was determined. "Right you are, Donny. We'll have a run at it, and we'll give it our best push." The twins gathered their strength and lined up at the base of the snowdrift. With a deep breath and a shared nod, they surged forward with all their might. "Keep going, Dougie. We can't stop now, or we'll be stuck here," Donald panted. "We're almost through, Donny. Just a wee bit more, and we'll make it," Douglas strained. The snow was thick and heavy, but the twins' determination was stronger. With one final push, they broke through the snowdrift and continued up the hill, the path ahead now clear. "We did it, Dougie! The line is clear," Donald said, relieved. "Aye, Donny, great work, but there's no time to rest. We've got supplies to deliver to the stations." The twins carried on, their spirits high despite their difficult conditions. As they arrived at each station, they were greeted with cheers and clapping. "Thank you, Donald and Douglas. We were running low on coal, and as the cold was setting in, you've saved us from a chilly night," the station master said gratefully. "Aye, it's our pleasure. We're glad we could keep everyone warm," Donald smiled. "We're just happy to do our part. Keep safe and have a warm evening," Douglas nodded. The snow continued to fall as the day wore on, but Donald and Douglas pressed on with unwavering resolve. They tackled more and more snowdrifts and made sure that every station and towns received the supplies they needed. As the afternoon turned to evening, the twins' energy began to wane. They had been working tirelessly, and the snowstorm showed no signs of letting up. Despite their exhaustion, they knew that they had to finish their deliveries. "We've been out this for hours, Dougie. I'm feeling a bit worn out." "Aye, Donny, but we're almost done, and then we can get back to Tidmouth Sheds and rest." The twins made their way back towards Tidmouth Sheds, the snow now falling gently rather than a fierce storm. They had cleared miles of track and ensured that every supply reached its destination. As they arrived at Tidmouth Sheds, the snow had begun to ease, revealing a peaceful winter scene.
Donald and Douglas, you have done an excellent job today. The island is very grateful for your hard work, the Fat Controller said proudly.
Thank you, sir. It was a tough day. Aye, sir. We're just happy everyone's safe and warm. Douglas smiled. The twins settled into their berth, feeling exhausted but proud of their day's work. They had faced the challenges of the snowstorm head-on and succeeded in their important task. It was a busy morning on the island of Sodor. The sun had just risen over the horizon, casting a golden glow over the tracks and the bustling railway yards. The familiar rhythm of the railway's morning routine filled the air, but amid the organized chaos, one engine was feeling particularly proud. Today's the day! I finally get to pull the express while Gordon is being repaired! He had been eagerly awaiting this opportunity for weeks. Edward watched James with a worried expression. Are you sure you're ready for this, James? The express is no easy task. It's not just about speed, it's about handling the weight and the responsibility. Oh, come on, Edward. How hard can it be? I'm a splendid red engine, remember? I'm sure I can handle it. It's my time to shine. Edward gave James a concerned look, but decided not to press the matter further. After all, James had been working very hard and had learned a lot over the years. Well, if you're sure, then I guess there's nothing more to say. Just remember, if you need help, don't be afraid to ask. I won't need any help. I'll manage just fine, James assured, puffing off towards Nappert Station, his wheels turning with excitement as he approached the station. He saw the Fat Controller waiting for him on the platform. The Fat Controller wore his usual stern expression, but there was a twinkle of encouragement in his eyes. Good morning, James. I see you're all set for the express run today, the Fat Controller said firmly. Good morning, sir. Yes, I am ready and raring to go. I'll make sure the passengers arrive on time and in style, James replied enthusiastically. Excellent. The express is a very important job. The passengers rely on us to get them to their destinations safely and on schedule. I have every confidence in you, the Fat Controller said with a nod. With those words of encouragement, the Fat Controller gave a nod, and James was coupled to the sleek, shining express coaches. The coaches gleamed in the sunlight, and James felt a surge of pride as he felt the weight of the express behind him. James started out smoothly, the rhythmic clacking of the wheels on the tracks accompanying his determined puffs of steam. The countryside of Sodor passed by in a blur as James sped along the tracks. The passengers settled into their seats, enjoying the comfort of their ride. The first part of the journey went by without any problems. The passengers were happy, James was feeling confident, but as the journey continued, James began to notice the weight of the express coaches. The heavy load made his wheels work harder than ever before, and he had to keep up a high speed to maintain the schedule. Oh, this is tougher than I thought, but I can do this. I just need to keep going, James said, straining slightly. As James approached Gordon's Hill, he took a deep breath. The steep incline loomed ahead, but he remembered how Gordon had made it always look so easy. James tried to pick up speed, but the weight of the coaches made it hard for him to climb the hill. The hill was steeper than James had anticipated, and despite his best efforts, he began to slow down. The coaches were heavy, and the gradient of the hill was relentless. No, I can't stop now. I have to get these passengers to their destination. James struggled, but despite his determination, James's wheels started to slip on the wet rails, and he came to a standstill halfway up the hill. Just then, Edward appeared at the bottom of the hill. He had been finishing his own work and had just noticed that James was having some trouble. With a gentle puff, he made his way up to James. "Hello, James. I saw that you were struggling, and I thought I'd come see if you needed any help," Edward said kindly. Oh, Edward. I was hoping to do this on my own, but now I'm stuck and I can't get the express up the hill," James said hesitantly. "Don't worry, James. We all need help sometimes. Let me give you a push up the hill," Edward encouraged. Edward buffered up behind James and began to push with all his might. With a combined effort, the two engines worked together to move the express up the steep incline. With Edward's help, James finally reached the top of Gordon's Hill. They continued for the rest of the journey together, and though they arrived at the station a little behind schedule, the passengers were happy and relieved to have reached their destination safely. "Well done, James. I know it wasn't easy, but you did your best and got the passengers here safely. That's what counts," Fat Controller said, arriving at the station. "Thank you, sir. I've learned that pulling the express is a big responsibility, and I have a new respect for Gordon's job," James said humbly. Later at the sheds, Gordon, who had just been released from the works, looked at James and smiled. "Hello, James." He had heard all about James's adventure with the express, and was pleased with his friend's determination. "It's all part of the job, James. You did well with your first time, and with more practice, you'll get even better at it." "Thanks, Gordon. I appreciate the advice. I'll work hard to become even better at this," James said gratefully. From that day on, James never underestimated the difficulties of pulling the express. He was proud of his achievement and continued to work hard, always ready to lend a helping buffer just as Edward had helped him. One warm spring day on the island of Sodor, Percy was busy shunting trucks at the quarry on Thomas's branch line. He loved the hustle and bustle of the quarry, with its constant activity and smell of fresh stone in the air. Today, he had a very special job to do.
"Come on in, Percy,"
called Toby as he arrived at the quarry.
"I hear we got an important delivery to make today."
"Good morning, Toby," Percy replied, excited. "Yes, we need to deliver a special load of stone to the harbour. It's a big job, and they're counting us to get there on time."
"Yep, let's get started then."
The quarry workers quickly got to work, filling Percy's trucks with freshly cut stone. As they were preparing to leave, the quarry manager approached them.
"Percy, Toby, make sure you handle this load carefully. The harbour needs this stone urgently."
"We'll get it done, sir,"
Percy said confidently.
"Lead the way, Percy. I'll be right behind you."
Percy and Toby made their way out of the quarry. The path was narrow and winding, with sharp twists and turns and steep inclines. It was a challenging route, but they were determined to complete their task. As they puffed along, they noticed a lorry had stopped across the tracks. Percy stopped suddenly.
"Oh no, Toby! There's a lorry blocking our way!
Percy exclaimed. Don't you worry, Percy. Help is already on the way, Toby reassured him. And Toby was right. Soon Thomas arrived with the breakdown crane. Hello, Percy. Hello, Toby. Need some assistance? Thomas called out.
Yes, Thomas. This lorry has stopped across the tracks, and we have an important delivery to make.
Don't worry, Percy. The tracks will be cleared in no time, and you'll be on your way soon. The workmen quickly got to work with the help of the crane, lifted the lorry out of the way, and with now the path clear, Percy and Toby continued their journey.
Great job, everyone! Let's keep going! We need to get the stone to the harbour as soon as possible,
Percy said, determined. They continued carefully, eventually reaching the smoother tracks of the main line. As they neared the harbour, they could hear the sounds of the ships and seagulls. They arrived at the harbour to find the workers waiting anxiously. The foreman approached them with a relieved smile.
This stone is just what we needed to stay on schedule. Thank you, Percy and Toby.
It's our pleasure. I'm glad we could help.
We're always happy to do our part,
Toby added. After delivering the stone, Percy and Toby made their way back up to the quarry. As they arrived at the quarry manager greeted them warmly. Well done, Percy and Toby. You handled the challenges well and delivered the stone on time.
Thank you, sir. It was a bit tricky, but we worked together to get the job done,
Percy said, smiling.
Yep, teamwork makes everything easier,
Toby agreed. The two engines settled into their berths at the quarry, feeling tired but proud of their day's work.
Percy, I'm glad we worked together today. It makes the work more enjoyable,
Toby said, his bell jingling softly.
Me too, Toby. You're a great friend and a great help,
Percy replied warmly. As the sun set over the quarry, Percy and Toby knew they could handle any challenges that came their way, as long as they worked together. Bill and Ben are hard workers, but they like to play tricks on other engines, and that often leads them into trouble.
Bill and Ben, I might have known it was you,
said a well-known voice.
What? Don't play dumb. Where are my trucks? The ones meant for Tidmouth,
said Boko angrily.
You mean the ones I gave to Douglas? Ben, I told you those trucks are meant for Boko. Why'd you give them to Douglas?
Asked Bill, confused.
Is this another one of your tricks?
No. Ben here thought it was a good idea to give your trucks to Douglas.
Did not.
Did too.
Did not. Silence,
said Boko angrily.
Where is Douglas now?
Right here, laddie.
Douglas, how are you here? I thought you left for Tidmouth.
I did, but my crew realised we had the wrong trucks and I came back, explained Douglas.
I see. Well, someone here has an apology to make.
I'm sorry I gave you the wrong trucks, Douglas.
Oh, don't worry about it. It happens to the best of us.
What do you mean?
Well, back in the day, Donnie and I did something similar, except I thought it would have a much severer consequence.
Would you mind telling us? Asked Bill and Ben.
Well, I suppose we have time.
And this was the story Douglas told. More and more people travelled on the Fat Controller's Railway. More and more ships came to the harbours.
Oh my god, dirty trucks and dirty sidings. Ew, gross,
put in James.
Silence,
ordered a well-known voice.
Let me tell you that an engine for goods will arrive from Scotland tomorrow.
The Fat Controller stared.
Did you say 2 engines, Inspector?
Yes, sir.
And send the other one back at once.
Certainly, sir, but which?
They have no numbers. The two engines are exactly alike and say they lost them on the way. The Fat Controller seized his hat. We'll soon show this nonsense, he said grimly. The two engines greeted him cheerfully. I hear you've lost your numbers, he said. How did that happen?
Them on a lady slipped off, sir.
What are your names then? He asked.
Donald and Dougie, sir.
Good, he said. And your controller can tell me which one of you is which.
It didn't kiss our names, sir. Who could he? We only given ourselves names when we lost our numbers.
One of you, said the Fat Controller, is playing truant. I shall find him out and send him home. Inspector, he ordered, give these engines numbers and set them to work.
Soon workmen came to give the twins numbers. Donald was 9 and Douglas 10. You may have noticed, Dougie, that the painters forgot something. What did they forget? They painted brand new numbers on our tenders, but they put none on us.
You mean, grinned Douglas,
that we can? Just that, chuckled Donald. How do you wish? Here's the inspector.
Now 9 and 10, smiled the inspector. Here's Duck. He'll show you round before you start your work. They went off happily together, and before long Duck had shown them what to do with trucks and coaches.
Take my tip, advised Duck. Watch out for Gordon, Henry, and James. They're sure to be trouble.
That night the twins backed into the sheds. They gave cheerful, deep-toned whistles to the others.
They sound like buses, murmured Gordon. Or ships, smirked Henry. You wouldn't be making fun of us now, would ye?
Gordon and Henry jumped.
Oh, no, certainly not. Mind you keep it that way.
So Gordon and Henry did. Every day, punctually at 3:30, Gordon steams in with the express. It's called the Wild Northwester and full of important people. There is also a special coach of passengers travelling to places on Thomas's branch line. Thomas is very proud of his special coach. One afternoon, Douglas helped Duck in the yard while Donald waited to take his goods train to the other end of the line. As Duck was busy arranging Donald's trucks, Douglas offered to take away Gordon's coaches. Douglas was enjoying himself when an awful thought struck him. I hope the Fat Controller doesn't find out I shouldn't be here. I couldn't abide going back. He worried so much over this that he forgot about Thomas's special coach. Soon Thomas came fussing. Where's my coach? Coach? What coach? My special coach that Gordon brings me. It's gone. I must find it. He bustled away.
Losh sakes, Amona stood away with the others.
A large mob of angry passengers erupted from the siding.
Now listen, said Douglas's driver. We'll change tenders to try and avoid trouble.
So Donald, with Douglas's tender, left with a goods train, while Douglas, with Donald's tender and his driver, remained with their innocent expressions. Ah, said the Fat Controller. Number 9, why have you not taken the goods?
My tender is always, sir.
I see. Some defect, no doubt. Now tell me, why did number 10 leave so quickly?
Maybe, sir. He saw you coming and thought he was late.
Said the Fat Controller. He turned to the passengers. Here, gentlemen, are the facts. Number 10 has been shunting in the yard. Your coach disappeared. We investigate. Number 10 disappears too. You can draw your conclusions. Please accept my apologies. The matter will be investigated. Good afternoon, gentlemen. The Fat Controller watched the passengers leaving, and then he swung around suddenly. Douglas, he rapped, why are you masquerading with Donald's tender?
Well, what happened? Who ended up staying?
Ben.
After we helped clear the snow and the other engines gave the Fat Controller a deputation, and after he thought about it, he let us both stay. That was a great story, Douglas. Thank you for telling us. You're welcome. Now can you please go fetch my trucks, please? No problem, Douglas. Unless you want to swap tenders with me. Oh, wait. And everybody laughed.
It was a bright and beautiful morning on the island of Sodor. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a warm, golden glow over the railway yards. Donald and Douglas, the Scottish twin engines, were bustling about the yard, preparing for a long journey with a hefty goods train. "Aye, Dougie, we've got a real challenge ahead of us today," Donald said cheerfully. "Indeed, Donny. This load's no small feat. But we've handled worse before, haven't we?" Douglas replied, smiling. The twins were very excited about their task. They had been given a large goods train filled with supplies for the other end of the railway. It was a very important job, and they were eager to show they could handle it. "Just look at this train! It's massive! We'll have to work extra hard to make sure we get everything delivered on time. Aye, it's gonna be a long day. We'd better get started." Douglas nodded. The twins coupled up to the long train, and as they were about to set off, Edward puffed into the yard. "Good morning, Donald and Douglas. That's quite a long train you've got there. You sure you can manage?" Edward asked, concerned. "Aye, Edward. We've handled bigger loads before. This is just another day at work for us," Donald replied confidently. "Aye, nae bother at all. We got this covered, Edward," Douglas added cheerfully. Edward watched with a hint of concern as the twins began to move their train out of the yard, and Edward couldn't help but notice the twins seemed a bit tense. "Just remember to work together. A team that works well can achieve great things, but arguing won't get you far. We know, Edward. Don't worry about us. We'll be fine," Donald said sternly. "Aye, we'll get the job done. Thanks for the advice, though," Douglas said, smiling. The early morning sun cast long shadows as they travelled through the countryside. "Look at that view, Dougie. The fields are so green today," Donald said, pleased. "Aye, it's a beautiful morning, but let's keep focused. We've still got a long way to go." At first, everything seemed to be going well. The tracks were clear and the engines kept a steady pace. "Dougie, you're pushing too hard. We need to keep things steady." "And you're not pulling hard enough. We're losing momentum," Douglas replied, frustrated. The bickering between Donald and Douglas only made the situation even worse. As they approached Gordon's Hill, they could see that the most challenging part of their journey lay ahead. "This hill looks steeper than I remembered. It's gonna be a tough climb." "Aye, we'll need to give it everything we've got." The twins took a deep breath and started up the hill. They pushed and pulled with all their might, but the weight of the heavy train was too much for them. "Slowing down, Dougie. I don't know if we can make it up this hill," Donald panted. "We can't stop now. We've got to keep going, no matter what," Douglas said determinedly. Edward, who had been following behind, noticed that the twins were struggling, and realized that they would not make it up the hill on their own. "They need help. I can't just stand by and watch them struggle," Edward thought determinedly. Edward moved up the hill and gently buffeted up to the back of the train. "Let me help you up this hill. I'm sure we can make it up together." "Thank ye, Edward. We could use all the help we could get." Edward began to push with all his strength. The three engines worked together, their combined effort easing the strain of the climb. "We're doing well. Just a bit more and we'll be at the top," Edward encouraged. "We can do it. We can do it," Donald said, struggling but hopeful. "We're almost there. Keep going, Edward, Douglas panted. With Edward's help, the engines finally reached the top of the hill. The view from the summit was breathtaking. See, teamwork really does make all the difference. Edward smiled. We couldn't have done it without you, Edward. Thank you for all your help. Aye, we owe you a big thanks. We've learned a lot today, Douglas said appreciatively. It's all right. We all need a little help sometimes. What matters most is that we work together and learn from our experiences, Edward said kindly. The rest of the journey went smoothly, and when they returned to the yard, they thanked Edward once more for his help in teaching them a very valuable lesson. Aye, thank you for everything. We're lucky to have friends like you, Douglas said gratefully. It's been my pleasure, you two. We're all a team here on the island of Sodor. I'm proud of how you've learned and grown, Edward said warmly. From that day onwards, Donald and Douglas worked on themselves and worked together without arguing, always remembering the help Edward had given them. The harbour on Edward Branch Line was bustling with activity. Ships arrived day and night to unload cargo. This meant more and more trucks were needed, and the sidings were soon crowded. Poor Edward found it difficult to stay organised. Any spare time he had was spent trying to tidy the trucks. Unfortunately, his priority was getting his own trains ready, so little progress was made. Bill and Ben tried to help when they bought their loads of clay, however it often ended up bickering about what truck should go where, and only made things worse. You can't keep going on like this, remarked Boko, as a weary Edward huffed into the junction. I think it's about time we spoke to the Fat Controller about getting you help. The other engines are much too busy with their own work. I'll manage. Somehow. Boko was unconvinced, but said no more. Later, Boko brought passengers to Thomas's junction. He was still thinking about Edward when his thoughts were interrupted by a cheerful ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. You look worried, Boko. What's wrong? Boko quickly explained about Edward and the harbour. I know the feeling, sympathised Toby. Back in my harbour days, you barely got a chance to rest your wheels. I miss it sometimes, though it's far from light work. So it seems, muttered Boko. I wouldn't worry. Edward has the one thing that every harbour engine needs. Experience. And I'm sure those trucks will be sorted by the next time you see him. But they weren't. Edward was busy elsewhere and hadn't been back to the harbour since the morning. Boko took his goods down the line, but when he arrived at the harbour, he was shocked. Trucks were everywhere. They giggled and chatted noisily. Boko frowned and moved forward to Bill and Ben, arguing furiously. They go there. No, they don't, Ben. Why do you think they go there? Because they just do, Bill. You see, that's why I put them on that line. You let a truck tell you where to put it? You know they're untrustworthy, Bill squawked. Seem more trustworthy than your instinct. You blocked the entire siding, retorted Ben. Enough, both of you. The twins jumped, not having noticed Boko arrived. What on earth is going on here? I just wanted to help Edward, cried Bill. By sitting around bickering, growled Boko. It's not our fault, Ben harumphed. We've never dealt with this many trucks at the clay pits. Perhaps if Edward had passed on some of that, what's it called? Experience of his, Experience! That's it! The twins stared at each other, then smiled. Whatever Boko's idea was, it was good enough for them. That evening, Edward was bringing his last passenger train to the harbour. He was glad the day's work was done and eager to organise the yard. As he pulled into the harbour, though, he was quite surprised. All the trucks were tidily arranged. Sidings were clear and ships were hooting their horns in delight. And the workmen were in much better spirits. How? He began, when a familiar sight came into view. Evening, Edward, smiled Toby. I don't suppose you mind a little help from an old harbour engine, do you? Not at all, beamed Edward. But how? Boko spoke with the Fat Controller, explained Toby. The others are handling my branch line trains while I look after the harbour for a few days. I must say, it's a relief to see you. I've been running ragged trying to keep everything in order. You leave this lot to me, Toby said, eyeing the trucks. I'll see to it that the harbour is well looked after. Toby was as good as his word. Edward and Boko were able to focus on their regular duties. Toby had their trains ready in good time, and all the ships were kept to schedule. He even found time to teach Bill and Ben a few tricks. At last the harbour grew quieter, and the workload was more manageable. All the engines came to see Toby off. The number 7 suits you, grinned Boko. We're certainly lucky to have had your help. It's been my pleasure, Toby smiled. It put me back in mind of the old days. Although, he chuckled, it reminded me I'm not quite as young as I once was. I'm looking forward to a quiet run with Henrietta. At that moment the signal dropped and Toby's path was clear. Goodbye, Toby. You're always welcome on our branch line, any time, Edward cheered.
One summer morning, Gordon was resting in a siding. It was a hot day and the express had been heavy. Oh, I get so out of breath these days, but nobody cares. They'll just say it'll be alright after a rest. They just don't understand. I'm not as young as I once was. Well, if that's the case, Gordon, maybe you should ask the Fat Controller to give you a new tanks and bunker. You'll feel a no engine. We tank engines never get out of breath, you know. It was lucky for Thomas that Paul Gordon had the energy to reply. That evening, the men inspected Gordon all over, but not even they could make him feel better. You need new tubes, Gordon. You'll have to go to the works to have them fitted. While Gordon was away being repaired, the Fat Controller chose Henry to pull the express. Henry was delighted. He loved having the chance to go flying down the line. However, his spirits dissipated. As the day before Gordon was due back, he became ill too. There's nothing we can do, sir. The only spare engine we have is Thomas, but he can't pull the train on his own. Nor indeed. Could you manage if Percy helped? I suppose the two of them with Duck might be able to manage, but it'll be hard work. Then it's settled then. Don't worry about being late. Just do the best, you three, and good luck. And so it was arranged. The 3 tank engines were coupled together, with Percy at the front, Duck in the middle, and Thomas at the back. Coupled up to the coaches, the passengers climbed in, and before long, the guard's whistle blew and it was time to go. Come on! Come on! We're doing it! We're doing it! Pull harder! Harder! The cavalcade moved slowly out of the station, and before long they were travelling along the main line. The engines knew they couldn't move as fast as Henry or Gordon, but the passengers didn't mind, as they knew Thomas, Percy, and Duck were doing their absolute best. Now, express trains aren't like local or branch line trains, as they don't stop at every station along the line, which meant the tank engine trio never got a chance to stop and catch their breath. Soon the trio began to feel tired, and there, just stood ahead of them, was Gordon's Hill. They surged ahead with all their might, struggling up the hill, but the strain was beginning to show. But soon they reached the top and began coasting down the other side. Phew, that was a near miss. I'm glad we didn't stick there. Gordon would have never let us hear the end of it. But Thomas had spoken too soon, as the ordeal proved too much for poor Percy. His driver blew the whistle to warn the others, and the whole train came to a halt. We can't take you off here, Percy. Do your best to keep your brakes off. It's not much further to the works. Okay, I'll try. So the cavalcade started again, but the journey was much harder for Thomas and Duck. Even if Percy wasn't tired, they still struggled on. As the workstation grew closer still, they both used every last ounce of strength and steam they had to summon one last brave effort to reach the station. Poor Percy had no steam left to say anything, but at last the workstation had pulled into view. They were on the final approach, when all of a sudden, Duck found he could simply go no further. Thomas tried his best, but he just couldn't pull the heavy coaches, and as the two tied tank engines in front all of his own, the cavalcade came to a stop, right in front of the workstation. There, witnessing the whole ordeal, was a newly repaired Gordon, staring in disbelief at what he had just seen. The Fat Controller had been on the train, and he came to tell the free tank engines just how proud he was of them. Well done, you three. You all did very well to get this far, and I'm very proud of you. You can all stop and have a long rest, and when you come back to Tidmouth, I shall have the workmen give you new coats of paint. So Thomas, Percy, and Doug were uncoupled from the train, moved off into a siding, while Boko was called in to take the express. As Percy and Duck were moving into the sidings wearily, Thomas went to take on water, but as he did so, Gordon looked at Thomas and gave him a friendly wink. He didn't need to say any more, as Thomas knew exactly what he meant and smiled.
Summer was fast approaching on the island of Sodor, and the Fat Controller was getting worried about all the passengers getting to their destinations. The railway was busier than ever, with tourists coming from far and wide to enjoy the beautiful sights and sounds of Sodor. We need more coaches to handle all the passengers. The trains are getting too crowded, and we need to make sure everyone can travel comfortably. But where can I find one on short notice? He said worriedly. Excuse me, sir, but I couldn't help over here. But I have an idea. We could use my old coaches. They are always reliable and could help with extra passengers, Duck said excitedly. That's a splendid idea, Jock. But where are these old coaches now? He asked, curious. Well, that's the thing, sir. I can't quite remember where they are. I think they might be in one of the old sidings, or perhaps somewhere along the branch line. But I'm sure I can find them, Duck replied thoughtfully. Very well, Jock. I'm sure you'll be able to locate them. Please find those coaches and bring them here as soon as possible, he said encouragingly. Duck set off on his quest to find the old coaches. He chugged along the tracks, eager to complete his task. His first stop was the washdown, where Percy was getting clean. Hello, Percy. Have you seen my old coaches around? I'm looking for my old ones to help with the summer rush, Duck asked eagerly. I'm not sure, Duck, but you might want to check the sidings near Tidmouth. Sometimes things get left behind there, Percy replied thoughtfully. Good idea, Percy. I'll head there next. Duck thanked Percy and set off to the sidings near Tidmouth. There were trucks everywhere, but no sight of the missing coaches. I'll find those coaches. They have to be here somewhere, Duck said determinedly. Duck searched through the sidings, calling out occasionally to see if anyone had seen his old coaches, but to no avail. Come on, old boy, we have to take a train, Duck's driver reminded him. Later, Duck was still thinking about the coaches and wasn't properly paying attention. Coming down a rather steep hill, he didn't see the red signal up ahead until it was too late. Duck! I can't stop! A quick-thinking signalman switched the points just in time, and Duck was sent into an old disused branch line. Phew, that was close, Donald said with relief. He went straight through the trees and bushes along the overgrown track and derailed at a level crossing. Look at the mess I've made. Soon Donald came to help Duck back onto the tracks. Laddie, you're not going to believe what I found back here, Donald said with excitement. What? There's nothing that will cheer me up, Duck replied glumly. Are you so sure? Why don't you look for yourself? And where are we, Donald? I don't recognize this place, Duck asked, puzzled. On the old Peel Godward branch line that runs up into the mountains of Sodor. It also goes to an old castle called Ulfstead, Donald explained. After Duck was re-railed, Donald took him along the overgrown tracks. Duck approached the source of the glimmer and saw that indeed it was his old coaches, hidden amongst the bushes and trees. They were covered in dust and cobwebs, but looked to be in decent condition. I knew I'd find you. It's so good to see you again, Duck said joyfully. Thank you, Donald, for finding these. Don't sweat about it. Percy told me earlier about your quest to find them. Now, can you take them to the works? Donald asked. I think so. All right, I'll leave you to it. Duck coupled up to the old coaches and began the journey to the works. The tracks were bumpy, and the old coaches creaked. But Duck was determined to get them to the works, and back on time. Duck arrived at the works with the old coaches. The Fat Controller, looking very excited, came over to greet him. Welcome back, Jock. You've done a marvellous job at finding the coaches and bringing them here, the Fat Controller said, pleased. Thank you, sir. I'm glad to have been able to help. I hope the passengers will enjoy the old coaches. I'm sure they will. Now let's get them cleaned up and ready for service. Where did you find them anyway? According to Donald, somewhere along the old Peel Godward branch line. I think it's time we restore that old branch line as well. What do you think? Great idea, sir. But first, let's take care of these coaches. The old coaches were cleaned and refurbished by the workmen at the works. They were painted, polished, and made ready for the busy summer season. After a couple of days, the old coaches were ready for their first run. The Fat Controller, Duck, and several other engines gathered at the station to prepare for the busy day ahead. Look at these beautiful coaches. They're ready to help carry passengers with the summer rush, the Fat Controller said proudly. As the summer season began, the passengers were delighted to see the newly refurbished coaches. They were impressed by the comfort and charm of the old coaches and boarded them eagerly for their journeys. Thanks to Duck's quick thinking and a bit of luck, the Fat Controller's railway was able to handle the extra passengers with ease. The old coaches were a great success and the summer season went smoothly. Henry the Green Engine was in high spirits as he puffed down the tracks. Sir Topham Hatt had given him a very important task, to help expand the works. As Henry arrived at the works, he saw Thomas and Percy shunting trucks. Hello, Thomas. Hello, Percy, Henry whistled cheerfully. Hello, Henry. We're glad you're here, Thomas replied with a smile. We could use your help transporting these new parts and materials to the construction site. Henry set to work immediately. He hauled heavy loads of steel beams, bricks, and machinery to the works. He even helped transport new tools and equipment that would make repairs quicker and more efficient. Henry felt proud to be part of such an important project. Over the next few weeks, the works began to take shape. The new wing was nearly complete, and Sir Topham Hatt was very pleased with Henry's hard work. You've done an excellent job, Henry, he said. I have another important task for you. We need to restore the old Peel Godley branch line, and your first task is to collect old rails waiting there. Henry beamed with pride. He left straight away for the branch line. Soon Henry was coupled to the train. The flatbeds were loaded with old rails that needed to be transported to the foundry to be recycled. With a final check from the guard, Henry set off down the main line, his wheels turning steadily and his boiler humming with anticipation. Now the journey started smooth at first, and Henry enjoyed the sight of the countryside whizzing past. He felt honoured to be trusted with such an important task, and was determined to do his best. However, as Henry made his way to the foundry with the old rails, he encountered a problem. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, and rain soon began to pour. The tracks became slippery and dangerous. Henry knew he had to be careful, especially on Gordon's Hill, which was known for its steep descent. As he approached the top of the hill, Henry felt the weight of the train behind him. He applied his brakes, but the train was too heavy and the tracks too wet. He began to pick up speed, racing down the hill uncontrollably. The signalman scrambled to clear the tracks ahead, but Henry was going too fast. He thundered past Wellsworth with no signs of slowing down. Henry's journey became a blur of panic and speed. He sped past familiar landmarks, unable to slow down. As he neared Crosby, Henry tried to signal for help, his whistle blaring through the storm. Henry sped down the line. He saw the lights of Crosby Station ahead. He desperately tried to slow down, but it was no use. He tried to brake harder, but the slippery tracks made it impossible. Passengers and staff scattered as Henry raced through Crosby Station. He saw the buffers at the end of the siding coming closer and closer. Henry lay on his side, steam hissing from his boiler, his once proud paintwork scratched and dented.